Well, Erica, thanks for taking time to meet with me. And I just thought maybe we'd start out and I would ask you to reflect on some things that you think went well this last semester.
See, we had our first spring delivery yearbook, and that was successful. We had to kind of coax the administrators to let us have our signing party, but in the end, one of them sent me an email and said, I think you've started a tradition if you guys want to continue. So, and we sold all of our books, and we've never done that, so I think that was successful. And I think the kids would say so. They seem excited, and we'll have the largest yearbook staff next year that we've had since I've been there. So I think that probably says that they all think it went well.
So spring delivery, sold out the books, new yearbook staff. Think about one of those things, and then think about what did you do to create that success?
Gosh,
How did you make that happen?
I don't like taking credit for their stuff.
Well, I know, but you are the teacher, you're the facilitator, you're the advisor, and you did something to make those things successful.
I guess spring delivery, I just didn't give them a choice.
Okay.
They were all new except one, so it was a new young staff, and so I just said, we're going to try something different, and we just did it, and I, at least as far as they were concerned, had confidence in them. I was a little nervous a couple times when we came up on some big deadlines and we had a lot of work to do, but I just kept telling them it's going to be worth it, and I acted excited and they got excited, and then by the end, one of the girls I hoped would be our editor for next year had decided not to take yearbook, and I tried not to be bummed out about it because I thought she would be very good. And then the day after we distributed books and we came back and we were talking about what went well and what they wanted me to write down so we'd remember it for next year, and she said, before we start, I have to make an announcement. I'm taking yearbook next year. So I think, just going through that whole process, that they believed in themselves then in the end, and she said, it was just so exciting, I can't miss out on it. I want to do this again. So
Great. I mean, a decision but did you find a way to bring those kids into your decision, or they just accepted it?
We got some things to look at, some examples of other people's books, kind of talked to other people about what they'd done, and so you kind of made the decision, but you brought them on board, and your enthusiasm carried over to them. Right.
Okay. Now I want you to think about this coming school year, and where do you see some challenges? What concerns do you have? What are some things you're going to be working on?
Probably on the newspaper side, we'll have some very strong, experienced kids coming back, and they're very excited. Our new editor pretty much took over at the end of this last year, and
I saw her doing that.
she's kind of in control, and she wants to do this, and so she'll be very good. And then we have an online editor. We've never really had an online editor, so he's kind of figuring that position out on his own. We had a website, but it was more or less just copy paste what we printed already, and so he's started us in the direction of more often updating the information that's on there. I guess I'm a little bit nervous about how that'll all work. We had our editing chain before to make sure that anything that ended up in the paper, I'd gone through several of them, and I've at least read through it before it's in there. Nothing's going to surprise me in the paper, and this way, unless I'm going to be on my computer at all hours, I'm not sure how to kind of keep an eye on all of that so that we don't get ourselves into a situation where someone puts something up that maybe they shouldn't have, or they really didn't think it through. Not necessarily maliciously. I'm not worried about them in that respect, but just maybe not making a real wise choice. So I'm a little bit nervous about kind of moving that way. I think we need to move that way. I'm just kind of nervous about moving that direction.
There's always anxiety when you try new things, but and so part of what you're saying is you're concerned about they're going to post things directly that you will not have had a chance to look at,
without even having
or
looked
the
it over.
Other staff members will have that. Okay. Was that an issue you'd like to focus on that we could have a conversation about?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because that sounds like a big risk on your part, and something you don't have total control, but you want to have some control over.
Right, and it's not even a control thing so much as just being aware of what's going on.
Yeah, that's a better word.
Yeah, because a lot can happen between the time I go to bed and get up in the morning, because they're all still online then a lot of times. So.
Well, think about how it would look if this went smoothly, how would it look with no problems? What kinds of behavior would the kids be having? What kind of product would you have?
It seems like they would have their own system for, I check in with this person. So there's always at least another set of eyes on everything that just, now we have that. Nothing goes directly from my hands to the newspaper or the yearbook. It's always being looked over by other people. So maybe in an ideal world, the kids would sort of develop this system for, is it I write it and I save my draft and I call this person to look it over and post it, or some kind of, we have a chain. Everything kind of goes through a chain now, but it would look something like that, but probably in a little bit different fashion just because of the time aspect.
So you're kind of comparing this to the system you're already using.
Yeah, which might be good or bad. I don't know. Maybe it has to be something different.
But that system works. It's successful. Do you think you could build on that to
probably modify some? Yeah.
And then one thing I know that you've done before is you have the students work in the decision-making process.
Right.
How do you think you could incorporate them, or do you think they would just set up a system?
I wish. Our editor-in-chief probably, she's going to be one that wants to make sure that what we're putting out there is high quality and it's been looked over. Our online editor is a little bit more cutting edge. He just wants to get it out there, and if people are looking at it and reading it, then he's thrilled about that. And so it's probably with the two of them thinking through it together with some guidance that they probably could arrive at something that at least we could try. That's kind of how we do everything, just try it and see how it goes.
So what do you think you'll do first to start working on this system?
Probably need to put something in writing before we print our staff manuals at the start of the year. So when I sit down with them here before school starts to think that through. The other thing I've been thinking about, I've seen other teachers do, is putting something together as far as what rights we have to the pictures that the students are taking, because I know I have some students that they take their pictures at the football game that night, they go back and they post it on Facebook and they're tagging everyone in it, which may then be a picture that we use in the yearbook, and it just introduces some other concerns too, because our administrators don't let regular students walk through school just taking pictures all day long. So we're taking pictures of cat dissection and then they show up on Facebook that night, and there are some issues there. So that's kind of along the same lines that we need to have some kind of policy in place for that too, just as far as putting content online, whether that's on our site or in other places. Yeah.
So it isn't so much about owning the copyright or owning the image. It's about what are you going to do with that image, and what expectation as you walk through the photographers walk through the building. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've kind of covered this, but I want you to think about some strategies you've used before when you're setting up policies and systems, and you have a staff handbook.
Right.
And
we look at things other people have done. It seems if I ask the students to create it themselves without a lot of guidance, we get something that's like our student death policy started out a little bit strange and had to kind of almost start over with an example. So probably need to give them some sort of model or an example at least from someone else, that this is a policy that someone else has used. Do we want to modify this or start with this anyways? That seems to work well.
So you could find somebody else that's a little farther down the road, because there may not be too many examples.
I know. I can think of a few people that maybe might have something.
Yeah. This is pretty new, so you'll be out there on the cutting edge.
We like to follow behind. You guys figure out the problems, we'll follow.
And then you'll step in. That's good. I want you to think about, as you're going through this process of setting this system up, what's one thing you want to remember and remind yourself, something you want to do very well as you're setting this up?
I guess make sure that they are seeing the value in putting out accurate information. We sometimes get lost in, well, I made sure I got a quote from the coach and I had this and that, and it's written in inverted pyramid or whatever, my lead's 25 words, and we kind of forget that the story doesn't really tell what happened. It's not, it's not quite accurate, or we're missing this viewpoint, so that they see it not as, oh, good, Mrs. Ricker gave us one more thing we have to do and make sure we get all our points, but no, we want to make sure this is right before we put this out here for everyone else to read, so that we are a source of information, and they keep coming back to us because they trust that what we're giving them is accurate and it's complete.
So you want to help them to see the big picture
Right.
and not forget about
Right.
that and get lost in the woods of
Right,
details
right.
and see what's happening. Okay, so and what I'm hearing then is you're going to meet with your staff for the, are you going to do that in your boot camp?
Yeah, probably right before.
Okay.
I'll meet with some of the editors.
Okay.
So we'd probably talk about it at that
Okay.
point.
And then you'll implement it and they will
So
help
that
you,
they can
they'll write it
right,
and then
present it to the rest of the staff. Maybe at boot camp, this is kind of how this is going to
how it's
go.
going to work. Do you see any, I don't want to use the word enforcement issues, but compliance issues?
Yeah.
Will your students be willing to comply with that?
I mean, I hope not. I hope that the group of kids I have, that they seem to be pretty good kids, but yeah, it makes me a little bit nervous. And it seems like an issue that if you had kids that didn't quite do what they were supposed to and you published something, that administrators and even our IT, our computer technology folks are pretty cautious about a lot of things, and they don't want to open up access to a lot of sites, and so I can see that making sure that we are right where we need to be is very important, so that we don't burn bridges, I guess. Just
And so covering that big picture helps
Right.
those students understand where that fits.
What we
in
stand to
they're
lose
doing.
if we're
Right,
not.
Right. Then are you anticipating anything like consequences in this, or do you think the students could come up with something like that if there's?
Yeah, probably. I always run into that. It's
Yeah.
like, what do we do? I always- like my students that didn't go where they were supposed to go the day that they left school, and
yeah.
now what do we do? Yeah. And I don't know that we'll put them in writing, but it's probably worth at least talking about that, if this isn't what happens, then these are the things that could be the consequences.
And sometimes when students come up with their own
Right.
ideas about that, they're pretty effective that way too.
Right.
Well, what can I do to support you in this endeavor? Do you need any resources or?
So say if you come across resources, if you see
Okay.
things,
Okay.
sometimes you're better at reading the listserv than I am. So if you see something on there, you can forward it to me in
Okay.
case I missed it.
Okay. So I will. I'll be looking
And
for
kind
any
of policies, especially the online.
Okay. An
Yeah.
online policies.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're gonna talk to the students, and I know you well enough that you'll probably turn a lot of this over to the students with a lot of guidance, so that they
Yeah.
feel like it's their policy that
Right.
they're developing.
And I want it to be them. I don't want to be the person that has to post it online, or, I don't want it to become my responsibility because it's theirs. If they don't own it and they're not the ones that are doing it, then we might as well abandon it because it's got to come from them,
Yeah.
not be my energy only. So.
Would you say this conversation has helped you kind of identify what you want to do next year?
Yeah.
It's been helpful to you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks. I don't know when we'll have our next appointment.
Whenever.
And I'll give you a copy of this so you can kind of remember what we've
Okay.
agreed to.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.